I'm Jenny and welcome back to my channel. Tonight is night number 3 of my haunted house and we're getting near the end, so tonight was supposed to be my son Ryan telling his side of the story, or side of what he saw in the haunted house, but Ryan has decided he does not want to share his story. My older 2 kids are still scared, still struggle with everything that happened to them in that house. It's embarrassing to them. They don't want to talk about it. They don't really like to tell anybody about it for fear that people will think they're crazy. Especially my daughter. She does not want to tell other people what happened to her. So I did tell what I knew about her side. As for the rest of her accounts and everything that happened to her, I don't know. Just what I saw when I told you when I'd wake her up in the morning and she'd be cut, and her getting locked in the bedroom several times. Now I did forget that when the last time she got locked in the room, I could have sworn we had just taken her doorknob off, but then my husband reminded me that she did get locked in the room another time after the doorknob was off. And there was a big hole there where the doorknob should have been. The door could not have been locked, but it somehow stuck and she was again trapped in that trapped in that room. Only this time he was home and he took the door off the hinges, and then she didn't have a bedroom door after that. So Chase was right when he said she didn't have a bedroom door for a while. We ended up taking her bedroom door off because she kept getting locked in the rooms. Now when she moved out of that house and she had graduated from high school and was 18 and she moved out, I told you we closed up that room. And my husband went in there and put plastic over the windows and closed them, and put plastic over the vents and taped everything off, so we weren't going to use that room anymore. And then he put the door back on that room and closed it up, and we didn't go in there. And the scary thing is that even though nobody was in that room and it was completely closed up and her stuff was out of that room, it was pretty empty, just the plastic that covered the vents and the windows, and they were taped off. But you could still hear noises coming from that room. You could hear knocking coming from it, and the cold, creepy breeze that would come out from underneath that door. I can't even explain to you. I think I told you before, but you'd go to the edge to talk to somebody or see who's at the door, and that coldness would creep out from underneath there, and it would cover your toes and go up your legs. It was the weirdest feeling of cold. It's probably pretty unexplainable, but that was the weirdest feeling, and it just creeped there. We got to the point where nobody wanted to even go look over the balcony. You really just wanted to steer clear of that room altogether. It was kind of scary. So we didn't use that room anymore. Also, coming from that room, when we were leaving or coming home, we would be, as a family out for the night, and when we take the boys out, when we would be coming home, it would be dark. You would see the shade move down and then move back up, like somebody was looking through the shade at you when that room was completely empty. Nobody should have been up there. We all noticed it. Nobody said a word until we moved out. It was a couple weeks after we moved into this new house that we talked about it some. And Chase mainly told me about his experiences then. Ryan a few, Stephanie a few, but nobody admitted that you could see somebody watching us pull into the driveway. It was so weird. And that was scary. So I did write myself a little list, so I'm not going to forget anything. A few things that I do want to talk about tonight. Ryan, I told you Ryan and Chase started out the first year sharing the bedroom, and then when Stephanie got locked in the room, and Andrew moved out. Stephanie took Andrew's room, and Ryan moved in the room. So as you come up the stairs, there was this room and then the room off to the side. This was Ryan's room. That's the one my sister was in when she got woke up, or when somebody whispered in her ear to wake up. Ryan is very quiet. He's kind of a shy guy. And his experience, mainly what I remember him telling me is he'd be sleeping, and almost every night that he would go to sleep, he would hear them talking. He would hear chattering in that room. He said he only looked up once because he was so scared. He never wanted to know what was in his room. He just pretended to sleep all the time. He said he'd just cover his face and pretend he was asleep. But he said the one time he did kind of look over and look up, he said the only thing he saw were 3 figures. And he said they looked like they were in robes, like they were monks or something. They had hooded robes. That's all he knows. He said he thinks one of them was a female, but 2 were men. So I guess it couldn't have been a monk if it was a female. But, you know, I could be wrong. I don't know. But they were in hooded robes, and they were talking about him. And he said he could hear clearly. He didn't remember all of their conversations, but every night they would have conversations, and a lot of times it was about him, or they would mention him. They would say, I don't think he knows that we're here. He can't see us. There's no way he can see us, you know, or, you know, I don't even know what else he thought they said, or remember what he told me they said. I don't remember. I'm sorry. But there were 3 hooded figures that did talk about him. 1 female, 2 men. And they would stand there in the bedroom. And he said they did this every night. They were there every night. So when he would go in his room at night, he would go in there only when he was dead tired, ready to go to sleep. He would shut his door, lay down, and cover up his face and go to sleep. Or listen to the chatter for a little while before going to sleep. The only thing was, he said that they were not menacing. He was freaked out a little, but after being there for a while and listening to their chatter, he said that they weren't malicious, they weren't there to hurt him. He said in some ways he thinks they might have been there looking out for him, you know, or looking out for the live people in the house, because the other things that were in that house weren't so good. Which brings me to the next thing. That's all I know about what Ryan saw. I'm sure he has a whole book of experiences that he had that I don't know about. But I will tell you, Ryan noticed the 3 people that he calls protectors. The only thing I saw in that house for sure was in 2007, and it was fall of 2007. I was downstairs. I couldn't sleep. It was probably 3 o'clock in the morning, and I couldn't sleep because the kids were fighting, and Andrew was naughty, and this was, you know, right when Andrew was kind of moving out of the house, going back to his mother's, and everything was really hard. I was stressed out, and I was starting to have anxiety attacks because of the kids not getting along, Andrew being naughty, and the goings on in the house, and I couldn't sleep at night. So I was starting to have anxiety again after many years. That came back because I all of a sudden felt like my world was spinning out of control, and I couldn't sleep. It was probably 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was downstairs in the living room. And I was in the big living room, so if you were in the hallway overlooking the edge, you would see me laying on the couch. In 2007, the fall of 2007, we didn't have the other dogs yet. We just had our black lab, Midnight Paul. And Robert was sleeping upstairs. My other kids were sleeping upstairs. And I was laying on the couch, and I was nervous because I was up late, and I knew, and I was kind of like, uneasy. So I was glad Midnight was down there with me. But I'm laying on the couch, and he's laying on the floor right next to me, and I'm petting him as I'm laying there, with my cheek on the couch, and I'm just talking to him and petting him, and we were watching a movie, and all of a sudden the front door rattled. And the way we had our sofa, our front door was here and our sofa was right by the front door, but kind of running this way. And then there was a little walkway. So I look up and I don't see anything. But then the door rattles really hard, and it sounded like somebody was outside trying to get in, and it was just shaking, this door rattling. But it did it not for that long. It just was like probably 10-second rattle, a loud rattle for 10 seconds. And I look up and Midnight's head pops up and we're both looking, and it stopped rattling. And then the window next to it started rattling, and then it stopped. And then the window next to that started rattling, and then it stopped. And then that window started rattling, and then it stopped. And then it went to the next room, which would have been across the fireplace into the dining room area with a small living room. And then that window rattled, and then the next window rattled, and then it went all the way down back around to our sliding glass door. So the sliding glass door was on the other side of the house, and the front door was on this side of the house, but you could, I mean, they were in direct line, and the couch was right there where I was laying in between the two doors. And then the sliding glass door rattled really hard, and then after that I felt this rush, and I heard this rush of air, and it just sounded like a whoosh. And I thought, oh my God. And I looked up, and I turned and looked up toward it, and it was like slow motion. I felt like I was in the movies, like I was watching a movie, because this could not be real. But it was dark in the house except for the TV, and this black shadow, it was more like it was like a shadow cloud thing. After the whoosh, it came right through, and it didn't come near me. It kind of turned, instead of coming, it was coming toward me, and then turned and went up the staircase. But when it went up the staircase, I saw the cloud or shadow, whatever. I saw one red eye. I didn't see two. It didn't really look at me. It just was like on a mission to go up the stairs, whether I was there or not. And it went up, and then it was long, or it felt like to me a long time. You know, I'm sure it was only mere fractions of seconds, but I felt like I was watching it in slow motion. But it went up, and it was long, and as it went up, all of a sudden I remember the last of the tail kind of whipped around and up the stairs. That scared the crap out of me. And when that was happening, the dog started screaming, and he was trying to shove his head under the couch. Only this sofa was one of those leather Copenhagen sofas that was all recliners, so there was no underneath. You couldn't get underneath it. And he just was smacking his face into the couch, trying to hide from this thing. And I was just in complete staring, because this couldn't be real. This could not be happening. It was the weirdest experience. I have never seen anything like that before. I've never seen anything before that, and I've not seen anything since that. But that was insane. And it scared me so bad that I couldn't think straight. I got up and took off running up the stairs because I wanted to get Robert. I was so scared. And that thing had just gone upstairs, but I didn't know where it went. So I took off running up the stairs. I opened up the bedroom door, and I jumped in bed and woke Robert up. I was so scared. And then we both went out in the hallway. We stood in the hallway, looked to see, you know, if there was anything out there. Could we see anything? Could we hear anything? Were the kids crying? Nothing. Quiet. Dead quiet, which is a really abnormal for that house. The quiet probably freaks you out the most after you get so used to it being so loud all the time, and all the knocking and clanging and stomping and bowling balls, and this house would not let you sleep. So that was in 2007. Now by 2008, we got married, October 24th, 2008. But that whole year, by the time we got married, I was exhausted. I was crying all the time. I couldn't sleep. I would go to work crying because I couldn't sleep. I was just exhausted. And I'm sure there are a lot of people at my old office and people I still keep in touch with, but a lot of those people remember my story, all my stories. I vented a lot at work because I was just scared. It was the first time in my life that I was this scared. Something was beyond my control. I didn't know what it was, and I'm a bit of a control freak. I like things just so, and I like controlled situations and everything to be calm, and it just wasn't. It was really scary. And also in this house, because you couldn't sleep, because it was so negative, and because we were so stressed out, it put everybody at odds. I mean, everybody was fighting, nobody could get along, and that wasn't usual for us. It was really, really hard. It was a hard time. And, it was such a hard time that I almost didn't marry Robert. I thought, you know what, maybe we should call it quits. It's just too much. This is all too much. I'm glad we didn't, but it really was that bad. Also, Christmas of 2007, we got the puppies, and they are Spike and Cookie. They are little Chihuahua terriers, and I still have them. They're now 12. They turned 12 October 11th. And Mr. Midnight Paul, we had him for his entire life, and he passed away when he was 12 here in this house. We actually had to, just in case you were wondering, I'm going to tell you about the dogs. He got full of tumors, and he got where he couldn't walk anymore, and he was, 12 years old for a lab at 135 pounds. He was a big boy, but he had a lot of tumors, and his back legs weren't working. He had hip dysplasia. He really wasn't good, and we had called to have him put down, but we wanted to do it here in our house where he was comfortable and with the people he loved, and so the doctors, they have traveling doctors that do that, so they came to the house and did that here, and even though it was awful, and we're still probably not over it and cry over him, but he was here with us. So the other two dogs are little, so they just now turning 12, or they just turned 12 this October, and one is blind and has diabetes. That's Spike, but he's doing okay. We give him insulin twice a day. And then Cookie is just fine. He's perfect. But we got them, they were babies. When I got them just about a week or two before Christmas, and they were 8 weeks old when I got them. So they would have been 10 weeks around Christmas. So they were little tiny guys. But when we got them, they were terrified of the house. They screamed all the time. Cookie in particular cried constantly. He's still kind of a little whiner, but not like in the other house. He kind of cut out that much whining after we moved. But I named him Cookie. He's a boy. I don't know. I couldn't think of a name for him, and a week went by, and I'm trying to figure out, gosh, I don't know. All of a sudden one day, and I'm like, Cookie. Cookie's a good name. I don't care if he's a boy. He's going to be Cookie. And this is 12 years ago. And so I was outside trying to get them to walk. All right, I got these two little tiny guys on leashes, and they're so little, of course they're not going to walk, but I wanted to walk him so bad, and our neighborhood was tiny. So I have him on his little leash, and he's about this big, and he's sitting in front of our house, and I'm like, Cookie, come on, trying to get him to walk, and he won't walk. The neighbors from across the street come out, and the man says to me, hey, how you doing? Yeah, great, small talk, and he says, hey, I just heard you call your dog Cookie. And I said, oh yeah. And he says, you just get those guys? I said, yeah. He says, well, why did you name your dog Cookie? And I'm like, I have no idea. It just came to me, I guess, whatever. I just decided to name him Cookie. And he says to me, well, that's really weird. And I thought, wow, all right, why? Why is it weird? And he says to me, well, it's weird because the lady that owned your house before, he says, before the realtor that owns it now that you rent from, that lady, he said, was very strange. He said, well, I think she was a witch. And I said, okay, what makes you decide that? And he says, well, she did some pretty weird things. And he says, but she had a dog named Cookie, and she accidentally poured hot grease all over her dog, and she tripped over him in the kitchen or something. I don't know. That's probably a horrible thing, and I probably shouldn't have told you that because that's really sad. But I don't know if the dog died. He didn't say. So I don't know. Or she had to get him put to sleep because he was severely burnt. I have no idea. The dog's named Cookie. So that is kind of strange. But either way. So that happened in 2007, right after I got the dogs. They were really little, so it was around Christmas time. And then in 2008, we're getting married, and it's around Halloween time and, you know, around the wedding time. And here I'm so stressed out. I can't sleep. I'm scared to death. I'm, you know, I'm up in the middle of the night a lot because I can't sleep. And I'm always afraid because I hear all those noises and I hear all the mini explosions. So I get up and start pacing around the house and walking around the hallway constantly, checking on the kids, listening in their rooms, make sure everything's okay. And as I'm pacing around, I see the neighbors. Now, this is the same man that asked me about my dog Cookie. It's his wife. She's now pregnant. She's very pregnant. She's getting ready to have a baby. And I can see her walking her hallways, the same thing, just walking, pacing back and forth. Because of the way our houses were set up, they're exactly the same. And our hallways had that, like I said, you could look out, wasted space. They have those big windows. So I could see her walking and pacing too. And one point in the middle of the night, 3 a.m., we're waving because we can see each other pacing. Then I happened to see her outside one day, and this was after she had the baby. She just had the baby. And the baby was a newborn, and so I went over and, you know, see the baby and tell her congratulations and talk to her for a minute. And she's still pacing the floors every night after she has this baby. And I had asked her if she'd heard anything odd in her house. And I said, you know, really strange things are going on in our house. And, you know, I'm just wondering if you're having any similar experiences, anything weird, you know, do you hear stuff? She starts to tell me, oh my gosh, I can't sleep at night. This house is so loud. And her husband walks out and shushes her and says, you don't hear anything now, go back in the house. And so she went back in the house and he said, we'll talk to you later. They never talked to us again. So, at least not about that. You know, it was a neighborly hi and bye and how are you kind of thing. But apparently she was hearing something too, but maybe her husband either didn't want to recognize it. He was scared of it. I don't know. We were scared too, but he didn't want to talk about it. So we didn't talk about it. But I'm going to go ahead and assume there were strange things going on over there too, since I saw her every night pacing. Next thing I want to tell you is about our paranormal investigators. We did have that house investigated. And this was in 2008. It was after we got married. It came to a point where I just could not sleep anymore. So I think it was either November, December of 2008 or January of 2009. It was that winter time. So I called them, and back then there really wasn't a lot of paranormal groups, especially here in Arizona. So it wasn't like I had a lot of choices. The one I found was a little bit north of Phoenix, and I called them. Back then they had phone numbers you could actually call a person rather than email them. So I called and I told them what was going on in my house. I was crying, I needed help, and they agreed, since there was children in the house being hurt, that they should come check it out. And basically when I asked them to come out, I asked them to come out because I needed help getting rid of it. I mean, I didn't call a paranormal investigator because I needed proof I had a haunting. I knew I had a haunting. And these paranormal investigators came out, and I'll tell you, about the group. I can't remember their name, but I did today email another paranormal group and ask about if they knew who these people were and if I could get a hold of them. And they did email me the link, so I can get a hold of them. So this is the story with the whole paranormal team. it's half crap, half investigation. So they get to the house, we leave the house, we unplug everything. We took the dogs with us. We had 3 dogs. By this time we had Mr. Midnight Paul and the 2 littles. And we put them in crates and we took them with us and we went to my mother-in-law's house. And we were supposed to be home at 4 o'clock in the morning to meet them after the investigation. Okay, so we come back at 4 o'clock in the morning on the dot, and we left the dogs and our kids at my mother-in-law's while we came back to the house to talk to the paranormal investigators and do like a debriefing kind of thing. So the paranormal investigators were outside my house and they were smoking, and there was a pile of cigarette butts in front of my house. And obviously they were nervous. They were a nervous wreck, which fine, you know, but a pile of cigarette butts in front of my house. So they said that one of their team members had to go to the emergency room. Apparently during the investigation, one of the team members was pushed down the stairs. One of them was choked. I'm not sure what else he said happened. I can't remember. But they kept freaking out. They got a lot of EVPs and things in the house kept messing with them. And they put a camera in my daughter's bedroom, and she wasn't even living there anymore. But they put a camera in that room, and the only thing that was left in that room, I think we left maybe a bed, but it was, yeah, maybe a bed with just a basic bed and a mattress. But they put the tripod in there, and every time they would leave the room and then they would come back, there would be an empty Mountain Dew bottle leaning up against the tripod. Now, where in the heck an empty Mountain Dew bottle came from, I have no idea. That is not something I bought. In fact, we're not a big soda drinking family, so soda isn't one of those things I ever really bought, especially Mountain Dew. So an empty Mountain Dew bottle, I have no idea where it even came from. But they said every time they came back, there would be that Mountain Dew bottle leaning up against the tripod, even though they would move it out of the way. And then, you know, they asked me about a lot of things beforehand. And then when they did the investigation, here's another thing.
Motion detected at the front door.
I had a basket underneath my bed. Now, this basket was like a little square basket with a handle. This basket is something that I kept, usually it was on the computer at the apartment before we moved. And in this basket was a collection of probably a handful of stones. But these are stones that my son had found and thrown in this basket. Stuff he thought was cool. A 10-year-old little boy collecting stones. He had dropped them in that basket. It was kind of a collection of stuff from sitting on the desk by the computer. And at that point, he was on the computer a lot playing games. You know, back then, that was, you know, it was before we moved into that house. So it was 2006, 2006, that basket was sitting there. And back then, he was playing those computer games that you had to have codes to, and you write codes down. So he had all these little strips of papers with all these computer game codes written down and stuck in this basket. And, it, you know, little sticky notes with stuff in it. I had this little deck of tarot cards that I chucked in there. Just a collection of junk. So anyway, when we moved into this house, I had this basket of junk, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. So I stuck it underneath the bed, and I put it, you know, our bed was tall, and we had the nightstand, so I put it underneath the bed, but kind of next to the nightstand underneath the bed, and it had a baseball in it too. So just a basket of junk that I didn't know what to do with, so I just stuck it under there. So also when the investigators were there, apparently they went through my basket of stuff. Now, if you're investigating a house, should you be pulling out people's stuff and kind of going through their baskets of stuff? Because I would think that's a violation of privacy. But, not that anything is in there that I cared about, but on their website they did state that when they were at my house, they accidentally spilled this basket of stuff, and they were going through it and picking up the rocks. And when they held the rocks in their hand, they got hot because I was casting spells or something on those rocks. I don't know. So that kind of made me angry because I thought, what idiots. These were stones that a 10-year-old boy collected, not anything that was even mine. So holding those in their hand, getting hot, that's a little bit of a stretch, I think. And that is, to me, I wanted an honest opinion. I didn't want somebody to come in there with dramatic flair like they're in their own TV show. That's not what I wanted. I wanted honesty, and I wanted somebody to take care of what was going on. Like I said, I didn't need proof that they were there. I needed somebody to help me get it out of the house. So anyway, that being said, I was really unhappy with the way this team investigated and how unprofessional they were. I'm sure things have changed. There are a lot of teams out there now that do a much better job, but anything I told them, they did kind of twist around to their advantage to make it a more flashy story for their channel. So when I read the stuff after, I was really offended because things that I told them, they turned it around and made it sound like something that it was not. I wish I could get my hands on that article, and if I can, I'm totally going to publish it for you or put it on here, even though, and I'll tell you the site too. Even if it's after my 4 days of stories over, because I want to. So I wasn't real happy with the way this was investigated. And then afterward, when I called to do the follow-up, I don't even know who I talked to, but the guy I talked to for the follow-up was really nasty to me. I mean, here I'm bawling because he's telling me that this haunting in this house is all my fault. I drug it into this house, it's all my fault, and that they are not going to help me. He did say he would send me a copy of all the EVPs and everything that went on, the whole investigation. He never sent anything to me. So everything they said basically wasn't what it was, and I think they weren't equipped. I think they needed either a demonologist, a priest, something, and they weren't equipped to handle it. I think they were wannabe ghost hunters and just were not equipped. I don't know if they're any better now, but I wasn't real happy about the way things were handled, and that they weren't even nice to me. After the investigation, they were so scared, and then they blamed me for everything. So that's interesting. Seems how everybody noticed it right away walking into this house over a basket with rocks and a little tiny deck of tarot cards that also contained game codes and a baseball. I don't know, go figure. That was mostly my son's stuff, actually. So anyway, that was the story of the paranormal investigators. I did today email another paranormal team in Arizona because they've been in business a long time. I had to research it, and emailed them and asked if they knew this other paranormal team. And they did email me. They were nice enough to email me back and said, I think this is the site. And it was like I can't even tell you. I have the email right here. So he did email me back, and he said, I think it was this and still is TAZPS. So tonight, I haven't had a chance to do it today, but tonight I'm going to look this up. And if I find anything in here or find my case, I'm going to attach it to this video. And if I do find it, that will contain the pictures that they took and the EVPs that they took. And it will contain the story that they wrote up about me and this house. Like I said, most of the story, the pre-story that they wrote about us wasn't true. They took pieces that I told them and turned it into a more awesome story than it really was. So, we're not that interesting, folks. Really. So I'm going to do that tonight, and then I'm going to attach it so that tomorrow, when I upload this, it'll be there. Hopefully. And by next week, I am going to show you pictures of that other house. And we do have a lot of family photos that were hooked into our other computer and our backup drive, and somehow my husband has managed to unhook the backup drive, and he thinks they're locked in there, all of our family photos from all those years. So he is going to try to get those out, because those photos of all of our Christmases from that house and birthdays and things like that all contain tons of orbs. and one really strange photo that I really wanted to show you. So I'm going to try to do that too. But I think that is all I'm going to tell you for this video. I really wanted to tell you about the paranormal investigators. But they were honestly scared, and you know, they did get hurt, and they probably did annoy whatever is in that house. So I'm sorry for that, because that is a scary, scary house. And I don't blame them for being scared. But next weekend, I will tell you the final draw, why we moved, and also my husband, and I think, is going to join me in the next video. So stay tuned. So I will see you next Saturday night with the last part and hopefully some pictures for this video. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. It really helps me out a lot, and I sure do appreciate your support. Thanks for watching. See you next Saturday.